So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sarah, can you do roll call, please?
President Bucher,
Here.
Young.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Gant.
Here.
Faber.
Here.
Polley.
Here.
Barheit.
Here.
Thank you.
Did we meet open meeting compliance?
Yes, agendas were posted on Friday, March 7th, both online and here at Village Hall.
Great. Trustees, do I have approval of the agenda sequence?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move into public comments. Ross, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Ross Swartz, 31315 93rd Street. I have two comments about the agenda items, or two agenda items, I'm sorry. One is on that forestry mulcher. I just want the board to ask how much it's going to be used. Because as a business owner that often rents one, they're expensive machines, and if it's not used a lot, I think it's more economical to just rent it. But it all depends on how much it gets used, whether it's better to have or rent, because the machine that runs that forestry mulcher really should be matched up to it. And it can cause a lot of damage to the machine running it. So it has to have ballistic glass and light protectors. It beats the hell out of the paint job on the machine. So it's just something I want the board to ask the Public Works on that, how much it would get used, whether it's better or not. And then the other item is, I didn't know this today, and when I was reading the agenda about the cameras, I just would like to know why, the board hopefully addresses this today, why that's not a Kenosha Police Department or Sheriff's Department, sorry, thing that they should be addressing, not Salem Lakes. Seems like that would be more of a police action. And I saw one that was supposed to be put in Wilmot. And I just want everybody on this board, because we all knew Chad, but can you imagine how he would have blown up if there was one facing the stage stop? So those are just things I want the board to address. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right, number 7, President's comments. 7.1, Economic Development Commission. Public engagement sessions are on Saturday here at Village Hall from 9 to noon and 1 to 4. I will mention that there is a survey that you can find on the Village's Economic Development Committee page. We also have an email. You can submit your comments there or come on Saturday in person and find out what the EDC is about and what we're trying to accomplish. Also, I have received quite a bit of applications to the various boards and commissions. I want to thank everyone who submitted one. I will be starting to review those this coming weekend and getting in touch with people to conduct short interviews to see if you're a fit. And then those appointments will be made on April 21st at the April 21st meeting when the new board is seated. If everybody can please silence their phones, just a reminder. Thank you. And then just a personal comment that it was my hope that the Economic Development Committee would be looked at as a positive for this community. And I do believe that it can be. I understand that things that are new are not always well received or understood. But I will say this, that we are committed as a committee of trying to help this community and our staff. And we will do just that. So that is my comment on that. Number 8, trustee reports. Do we have anything for that? Bill, or do you want to wait to talk during the?
No, I do have one additional item. I'd
All
like to recognize 3 members of our fire department, Salem Lakes Fire Department. I had received a call earlier this week of a resident who had just recently moved into their house. And while they were moving things, they got the odor of gas coming from the stove area. They called We Energies. The gas department would be there, but it would take some time before they came. And obviously they asked them to step outside. Not content with that as an answer, they reached out to me. I in turn called Assistant Chief Keski and asked if they were very busy and if they could spare someone to bring one of the sniffers, which is the same device that We Energies uses to check for gas leaks. And they did. They came out. Jason Edmonds, George Edmonds, Jason Dahlke, and Brian Nielsen all came out. And not only did they check everything for a good 30 minutes, but they also did somewhat of a learning session with the new homeowner on things that they can look to do differently in the way the house, the laundry room, which had the furnace, the water heater, and so forth, were designed. So I very much appreciate the effort on behalf of the Salem Lakes Fire Department. And thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. I'll make sure that they get that information. We're very proud of our responders. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to hear. Thank you. Okay. We go on to number 9, presentations, petitions, and communications, discussion and possible action on the following. 9.1, Central High School update. John Gendron, District Administrator. Hi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. I just want to echo something, just what Mr. Hopkins had said. The fire department, led by Chief Carr, has been wonderful to work with. Opening up a new building, going through different things. I just want to echo that and thank him for his team and being able to work with us. So just echo that. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was here honestly 4 years ago when the district was looking at a referendum. And one of our strategic goals is so that we don't want to come and talk to you just when we need money and need things. So my hope is annually, we would like to come and give you a very brief update. And also I met with Cassandra just about how we might be able to partner for workforce items and different things. So I'm going to kind of go through this kind of quickly because I know your schedule is tight. So if you kind of scroll through the first couple of slides, it is just a culmination of our facility project. If you have not had the chance to be in our building, we're in year 2 of that. All new additions there on that slide. You'll see one of the things that cornerstones of our new building is just open spaces in the modernization of that. If you kind of go there. The next slide is, I think, most importantly, I think to all of us that work with districts and boards, is we were able to meet our project on time and on budget. That's very difficult to do. We did have to do some, we'll call it value engineering as prices came in, but none of the scope of the project in terms of safety, spaces, had to be diminished of any of those things. So we're very proud of the space we have for our kids and our community, and we've heard a lot of great things about that. Next is a little bit of talk about just kind of what we're doing as a district. I won't go through all of that. We are in year 3 of our 5-year strategic plan. All of those areas to the left are things that we're working on. One of the things that we're really trying to work on, I'm going to talk to you a little bit, is continuing to be fiscally responsible. About 2/3 of the districts in Wisconsin are having to go out for operational referendums. There certainly is a lot of things about school funding out there. School districts that are going out for operational referendums, that does not mean that they're not managing their money well. It's just how the formula works. I'll show you in a second, I think, how we've been able to avoid that at this standpoint. But if you go to the next slide, I know it's very hard to see from where you are, but 2 years ago, our district embraced an initiative called Redefining Ready, because a lot of times schools will look at to say, what's your composite of ACT score, or K-8s will talk about that. Well, we know kids, especially young adults, are much more than just one test score. So if you look at the graph there, it talks about preparing kids to be college ready and or kids to be career ready. We made the mistake in education, and I was guilty of it. 6 years ago, I've been at Central. And the first question we'd ask seniors is, well, what college are you going to go to? Or what are you going to major in? And I think what we've really tried to turn over the last 2 to 3 years is to ask kids the question is, what's your plans past high school? Because as you know, there's a lot of great opportunities here in the village, all over for youth apprenticeship jobs, electricians, plumbers, and all of those things. So one of the things that you'll see up there is our goal to make sure that all kids are college or career ready. Our goal is for them to be college and career ready because those paths, those decisions are different. But I won't read through all of that there, but those are kind of the framework of what we're working at every single day is the components that help kids to be college ready, their ACT scores, their GPAs, are they taking AP classes? But the career readiness on the other side talks about attendance, participation in co-curricular activities, community service, dual credit. So giving kids those opportunities on both ends, and really working with our freshmen as they come in. So as you look at those numbers, those are the percentages of our senior class. So we kind of follow their cohort. So I know it's very hard for you to see, but last year's graduating class, 92% of our seniors were college or career ready. Our goal is to be 100%, and our goal is to have the college and career ready. Our numbers are 70%. Our goal is for that to be at least 80%. So that's kind of our focus of what we're working on. If you look to the last slide, there's lots of things up there. I think what I want to highlight to you is the big chart on the right-hand side. If you look back in 2017 and 18, our enrollment at Westosha Central was about 1,083. We now are at 1,305. So our enrollment is growing. But the reason our enrollment is growing isn't because our resident population is growing. It's because of open enrollment. Open enrollment, if you look at it, and that's where districts and kids have a choice of where they go. Back in 2018-19, we had 127 kids into Westosha Central. We had 128 kids leaving. If you fast forward that to this year, we have 330 students choosing to come to our school from outside of the school district and 108 leaving. Most of our kids, I'm going to be honest with you, our biggest group of kids that we get are from Kenosha Unified, kind of that west side of Kenosha Unified. My kids graduated from Wilmot High School. They had a great experience there. So this isn't a competition to say us versus Wilmot or us versus Badger, us versus Burlington. Our commitment is what can we do best for our kids? And if you see that, my last point there is we've generated about $2 million in net revenue through open enrollment. So if you look at a school district who might be flat or even upside down in open enrollment, you take that $2 million away from us, I'd be sitting here tonight to tell you we probably would have to go to operational referendum. So open enrollment is a dangerous thing to live by because things change, schools change. So I know I've met with, Cassandra, school funding in Wisconsin is primarily driven by enrollment. So I know that's an easier thing to say, we just need more kids. But I think as you look at school districts, the majority of school districts are declining in enrollment. So I know you guys are having those conversations about housing and residents and things like that. It's not a simple piece, but I will tell you, and I told Cassandra, anything we can do to help promote that for you. I know I could speak for Wilmot because we met with them jointly. Anything we can do to promote our schools to help as you're looking at residential economic growth, we're there to be. So I probably went past my 5 minutes. I apologize, but I will just tell you that we feel that we have an excellent school. We appreciate the support here, and we look forward to partnerships with your board, the village, about how we can do things and give kids opportunities, especially in that career readiness part. So any questions you have for me?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So when you're talking about that, there's really more to the components than just like increasing residency that brings additional children for the enrollment in the different grades. If you were to give us, say, two key things tonight or one, whatever you have, that we could use to try and focus on to understanding that open enrollment, somebody, like you say, might change their mind and pick another school next season, and now you have that much less revenue to work with. What are some things that we need to be aware of beyond creating more people to come to the community?
Um, I think when parents pick schools, they look at it for, well, what does that particular school offer? But I think they also look at safety. I think safety is a huge piece. We're very fortunate. I know we have somebody from the Kenosha Sheriff's Department back here, the fire department. So I think those ideas of how the villages, the communities can support to make sure kids are safe and feel safe, I think that's a huge part. And I also think local businesses growing, especially at the high school level, because kids want those youth apprenticeships, they're called, where they go out and work. So if we can get kids and we can say, boy, they could partner with, I saw, Mr. Schwartz there, Schwartz Nursery or whoever. I just use that as an example. I think that promotes kids to want to choose schools, especially at the high school level.
I really appreciate that answer. That's definitely great information to use with the EDC.
Yep.
Thank you
Yep.
so much.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I really appreciate your time, and I will try not to make this an every 4-year piece, but certainly come back and update you or answer questions either in this format or even in a committee format. So I
Beautiful
appreciate
school.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 9.2 Silver Lakes Happenings Event Schedule. So Silver Lake Happenings is asking for, I believe, 3 dates. The first to be May 18th, 2025. At Schmalfeld Park for the car show from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Also, September 21st from 9 until 5 at Schmalfeld Park for Silver Lake Happenings Fall Fest. And then December 12th, 2025 from 5 till 10 p.m. for the Silver Bells Festival of Lights Parade at Schmalfeld Park.
I would make a motion to approve the 3 dates and times as set in the document.
Okay. So Hopkins in favor. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 9.3 Introduction of Kristen Headland, Accounts Payable / Deputy Treasurer.
Good evening, members of the board. President Bucher asked that as we have staff join our community to please have them come so we can introduce them. So tonight we are introducing Kristen.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kristen Headland. I just recently joined the organization. I'm thrilled to be here and I am excited for this new opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
It's always nice to put a name and a face together. Okay, number 10, Administrator's Office, discussion and possible action on the following. 10.1, flock camera presentation and request to purchase 2 cameras for $8,500 to be placed on Highway C in Wilmot and on Highway 83 at the state line.
I'd like to make a motion to table this. I have not had enough time to work on this item. If we could still take the presentation, that'd be great.
We should take a presentation, absolutely.
All right, thank you. So just as a quick introduction, during budget workshops last fall, when we were looking at the sheriff's office budget and adding additional staff to our community, it was asked, instead of adding a 3rd shift officer, could we perhaps look at adding 2 flock cameras? The board did take have consensus during the budget workshops to add 2 flock cameras to our budget. So this evening's presentation is to talk about those 2 flock cameras and where they would go. And we've been working in conjunction with the sheriff's office on the locations of those as well as with flock on those. So I will introduce Billy.
Tom Gilly, Kenosha Sheriff's Department. Very little captive operations at Pleasant Prairie Police Department.
So, flock cameras. So, for those that don't know what flock cameras are, basically they're an automated license plate reader. They're solar powered. They are, very high resolution cameras, and they read the plates. They're tied into the National Crime Information Center. So basically that's where data is entered for if, wanted subjects, wanted vehicles, missing and endangered people, maybe, subjects that are, maybe silver alerts, amber alerts, things of that nature. So that's one thing that it will pop up when the vehicle goes by, it reads that plate and they get real time alerts. It's right away. It's not minutes later like that. It's a real time alert that the law enforcement officer gets and they can react to that area immediately. Another option too, as well, is that law enforcement can also enter what's called a hot list. So maybe an officer has probable cause to make an arrest, but that hasn't turned into a warrant yet. So they can create a hot list for that vehicle, and they can enter it in, and that depending on where they want to set it up, those cameras will, if it hits on it, law enforcement can take appropriate action too as well. So, and you feel free to pop in at any time if you want. So currently, the sheriff's department is the administrator of 3 flock cameras. But we have currently shared access to over 14,000 cameras nationwide. Now, a lot of times these tools it's used with our detective bureau for investigations. So locally, basically you're going to have patrol deputies would use more of a localized system. So neighboring agencies we share with Pleasant Prairie, with Kenosha Police, Antioch, a lot of border communities. But these cameras, we have shared cameras all the way across the country, California, Texas, Florida, and that has resulted in arrest from various criminal theft organizations, our narcotics, stolen vehicles. We had a stolen vehicle one time that hit on a camera down in Illinois, turned out to be on a car carrier. A stop was made, and there were multiple other vehicles that were stolen on that car carrier. So it's an effective tool. Another thing that is really nice about it, sometimes, and a lot of times actually, witnesses don't get a full license plate. So it might be a situation where they only know, oh, it was this color vehicle or is a make or model. It can pick up very specific characteristics of a vehicle. You can also enter things such as maybe a dented bumper or a bumper sticker. So even when you don't have a plate, you can still utilize this data to track vehicles. And give an example, you just had an incident over the weekend on Dells Road, and 2 female pedestrians were struck by a vehicle that fled the scene. They left a piece of the vehicle there. We were able to kind of determine what kind of vehicle it was roughly, and a flock camera probably would have assisted in that investigation. Fortunately, we kind of lucked out where Kenosha Police made an arrest for suspected drug driving, and that person was taken custody. We were able to kind of tie up everything and match that vehicle. So he's facing pretty serious charges, felony charges. But another case of where they didn't have anything, they couldn't tell us much about the vehicle, but having these cameras, and we could check the area as far as, okay, it went this way. Do we have any cameras in that location? Okay, what do we have going that way? So very effective tool. A lot of times the data is encrypted. It's stored in the cloud for about 30 days or for 30 days, and that's deleted. So I know there's concerns about privacy. This is not, it is not a facial recognition system. So it's not picking them up on people or anything like that. This is strictly for the vehicles and people who are associated with the vehicles. Currently, as far as how it works, deputies or law enforcement, they sign up for the system. So they can sign up with an email. They can sign up where they can be also alerted on their phone. It depends on what they want to do. So they choose what cameras they want to access, what information. So we have some people out there who are very proactive, and they're searching cameras everywhere. They're asking for alerts everywhere, all over the place. A lot of the deputies, though, they kind of focus more around the local community. So again, we have 3 cameras that we're currently administrating. And for example, like the last 30 days, there was over 430,000 recordings. We had about 1,500 searches on those cameras and about 250 hits for various incidents. So you want to key in at all?
So I can just speak to our experience at the Pleasant Prairie Police Department. Our municipality invested in 6 cameras. Those are a 2-year commitment and about $18,000 per year for all 6 of those said cameras. We've had nothing but success for it. We've had cases where there's crimes against property, crimes against persons, where we have some type of flock success story. It did lead to an increase in police pursuits, but that's our job. That's what we do, right? So, for example, over the last couple of years, we've averaged around 100, annually for car chases. In 2019, we had 19 car pursuits. Some of the examples that I brought is, you may remember, about a year and a half ago, we had a bomb threat at Costco. Turns out that was just a hoax so that the guy could do an armed robbery at one of our Chase banks. Flock camera read this guy's suspect's license plate in the area of the actual bank. That with other information led us to make an arrest for this, both this hoax and this actual armed robbery. More recently, just some recent examples. So January 15th, we had a vehicle that was involved in a car chase earlier on first shift by one of our patrol officers. It went south in the state line. The pursuit was terminated. However, they took the time to enter the license plate in this hot list that Lieutenant Gilly's talking about. About 6 hours later, that car is read on a different license plate reader, flock plate reader of ours on Sheridan Road. We get in a car chase with that again. Eventually, the vehicle crashes. 2 suspects take off, and unfortunately for him, one of our canines bit the guy. But we arrested both of these people, and you got to keep in mind these stolen vehicles are involved in other property crime. It's just not someone that's driving a stolen car. It's not just stealing cars; they're doing burglary stuff, all that kind of stuff. So, without a doubt, flock cameras have been successful in our jurisdiction. If we have any other further discussions internally about what we're going to do with these cameras, we'd be looking to add some versus reduce the number of cameras. In addition to that, as a resident of Salem Lakes, I think that the village board should seriously consider moving forward with the flock cameras.
One thing that's nice right now about sharing all these cameras. So let's say you have an incident where somebody commits a crime, maybe, and flees the scene in Pleasant Prairie. Kenosha had City Kenosha, Summers, so you're able to track the suspect vehicle. So maybe they hit here, but you lose sight of them. Well, now they just popped up on this camera over here, and now they popped over here, and now we're able to get them. So obviously, more cameras, the better for these type of incidents. It's not always necessarily criminal arrest. We had a case in Summers where a family reported their father who had dementia. He was elderly, left the home, hadn't been seen in hours. Within 30 minutes of taking that report, his vehicle hit. They couldn't ping. His phone was dead. They couldn't ping it. And within 30 minutes of taking that report, he was recovered and relocated to his family safely. So there's a lot of positive things with these cameras, and the deputies are utilizing it all the time. They're very active with it. I think it's just an incredible tool. Now, I know there are people that do have the privacy issues. They're saying, okay, it's Big Brother like that. But my argument to that is that we're living in a society today where everywhere you go, people have the recording on their cell phones. Businesses have recordings. People have dash cams. This is a tool that increases, and obviously these cameras are only placed on public roadways. To me, I feel like there's not really an expectation of privacy. You have people you're out there driving on the road, you're visible to everybody. We have the ability currently in our squad cars, or we can call in a dispatch and run out a plate. I know there's concerns about, okay, well, what if a deputy or an officer uses this information for their own personal use? It can happen anywhere, and it has happened in other agencies like that. Those people would face severe discipline, and/or they could be charged criminally with that offense. So I understand there are a lot of concerns about that kind of stuff, but I think this is just an incredible tool. We've had a lot of success. I could go on. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I mean, everything from various burglaries to, there's a lot of narcotics, these multi-theft rings, felony lane gang. We've had just a lot of success with our investigations.
Yeah.
So I would say that I think for the amount of money, I think it's a great investment. And especially as far as locations you're talking about, I think you have a lot of vehicle traffic going through there, so it'd be very beneficial.
Officer Gilly, where are the three located in Kenosha County? Is it in the city?
Oh, the city has many more.
Okay.
So Summers currently has 3, and that's who we are the administrator right now.
Okay.
So, you have 6, you said, or?
We have 6, and I
Okay.
know the city of Kenosha has over 25.
In the population of Pleasant Prairie?
20,000.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, I got a question. Now, does this, you don't put a number, a plate number in and it finds it, basically takes a picture of everybody's number, then you can filter through to find if it's needed?
Yes, it will take a picture of that, and then after 30 days, that data is deleted. So it will, but we are not looking for just anything. So we are looking for, I mean, you can use it to search for a vehicle that might have fled. So, okay, this left the scene of an accident. What cars have passed that camera at that certain time? That's where you're using a tool. Or it can read that plate and say, okay, it hit on NCIC. They're wanted for a homicide out of Chicago, something like that. So it can be used for that. But yes, it is recording the vehicles. Now it's recording the vehicles, not the people. So, and that's the key thing here.
Who stores the info?
That's through Flock. So it's, like I said, it's data encrypted, it's cloud-based. They store it. Now, as far as I can tell you, whenever I log in the system, I can only go back 30 days. So that's a good and bad, because for investigative purposes, sometimes you don't get leads until later. So you have 30 days. But at the same time, for privacy concerns, absolutely.
There's also a lawsuit concerned that Flock Safety also maintains a centralized database, allowing anyone with access to track a license plates beyond a single community. And so if my kid's 16, I don't want my kid track or any stranger have any information on my 16-year-old daughter's car. So that is definitely a concern. Also, there's a current lawsuit alleges automatic license plate reading cameras violate privacy rights by creating a dragnet that monitors everyday travel. And we're going to put them in Wilmot?
So let me answer that. So I essentially get to have a squad car parked at that intersection, which we've done for traffic complaints. And they could run every single plate there. So I don't understand where your concern is.
My concern is someone else accessing the database.
Who else? Okay. So you're talking about a breach is what you were.
That's correct.
Okay.
And anyone outside the community that could breach that as well, because that's not government, that's Flock.
I understand what you're
So
saying.
That's my concerns.
Okay.
All right. Is Wilmot a high crime area? In out in this county?
I think you would be surprised as far as what comes through your community. Absolutely. What's
Okay.
coming through from as far as Fox Lake.
I agree.
Yes, I think
agree.
you'd be very surprised.
How many does Paddock Lake have? Do we have any in Paddock Lake?
You don't have any. You would be the first out in the county.
Okay.
West of the interstate.
So who is, let's just say that you have somebody that you have an incident and they say it's a blue car, 4-door. Who is going to look at that data and
That's-
how quickly can you get through it if it's, 6 hours worth of data in a busy intersection?
Okay, so you're gonna have a time that they're gonna say that this was, so they can go back right away and say, okay, I'm gonna look at the camera at this time.
Mhm.
So it can be out, searched pretty quickly
Okay.
as far as for the time.
Does the system automatically match the license plate to a make and model, or do you see where I'm getting? Like if you're
Right.
going off a make and model, but it's reading license plates, can you pull the report and it will say blue sedan, license plate, whatever? I mean, how does that work? I don't understand the
Well,
connection.
I mean, so there's two things. So if you don't have a license plate, it still can pick up certain characteristics. So
Right.
that can be, an officer can enter that information. Hey, this vehicle was involved it's gonna have this kind of damage. I'm looking for this type of make, model, color,
Mhm.
with this damage. Then that will alert on that. It might not necessarily be the plate, but most of the time it's going to be a plate information. But I can tell you, a lot of people, when they know they're going to commit a crime, they're either covering it up or they're taking it off, or the vehicle doesn't match the plate.
Right.
Okay.
Now, these cameras would only record license plates coming into our community, not going out.
I think you should set up coming into your community. Antioch has them going into their community. Yeah, it makes more sense for coming into your community. That way we can immediately deploy to that area versus if they leave and they're going across the state line, it doesn't, we can still contact, that other agency, but it doesn't help us apprehend these people.
So then you also said that it's not automatically fed to the officers in a geographical area. They actually have to sign up.
They get an account, and they can pick as far as which cameras that they want to get alerts on.
So how
So,
do
because imagine
communities-
you don't want to get, I mean, we have access to over, what it is, say 40.
Yeah.
So they're going to do more local, or they're going to be just over the state line into Racine, things of that nature. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they can do it by phone, by email, both. However they want to do it. So
Is that a requirement of your officers?
it's not a requirement.
It is not. So we could put these in and nobody could.
They're going to use them. I can
Okay.
guarantee you. These deputies are very excited about it. They're excited about the prospect that you might actually put cameras. They're hoping
Okay.
that there's more that goes through the community. They love it.
Mhm.
And I tell you what, it's a great tool to, for investigations and for, I mean, again, what comes through your community, you'd be shocked. And we're finding that in the village of Summers. So,
Yeah.
Appreciate your time and effort this evening. One question that I've got listening to some of the information is that like when a plate is not completely known or only partially known, but then or maybe not known, but it's actually vehicle data like make, model, and color. Is it not possible that that could result in initiated stop of a like vehicle, and then that individual or those individuals would be subject to trying to understand why they were stopped, and it could escalate into something more, and there is that potential that exists with that?
you want to comment on that all? You have a little.
Yeah,
As a minister.
that's a good question. We employ law enforcement professionals, and I would expect our officers to use common sense. I think this is where it fall under. We, the threshold for making a traffic stop is reasonable suspicion, which is a minimal threshold, but it's still something you have to justify. I would like to think that our personnel wouldn't just, they would have a corroborating information that they're stopping the right car.
Well, and so at that moment in time, though, the only information could be make, model, and color, and beyond that, or the only thing could be maybe occupants or total number of occupants, and they could easily match up to what the limited information that you have. So now you could have, and I would completely believe that the officers would all be professional and well trained, but isn't it possible to be somewhat excited like this might be it, and looking at it from a set of glasses that we might have our hit here, and then that we've all seen videos online that things go south for people and turns into nightmares. Is that not a possibility? Depending on how it goes down, even people being professional, thinking that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think that is possible. Also, it's just fine to realize you may not have the correct people, and that the traffic stop detainment is minimized and they're released as soon as practical.
And
I'm just going to add on that really quick
Sure.
because again, there's going to be some common sense, and it's also going to be there's a timeline approach to this. Okay, so it's not going to be like, okay, well, this vehicle just popped up on this camera 1 hour after the incident, so let's stop this vehicle. Unless it's very specific criteria like that. The other thing, all the time we'll get calls. Hey, a suspect. Someone say, hey, that's a suspect vehicle. It was a red Charger, went this way. Hey, we just saw a red Charger. It has nothing to do with flock. We just saw a red Charger. We're going to make a stop and investigate it to see. And again, as Detective or Captain Oliver just presented, it's minimized. So if we make the stop and we say, okay, obviously it's not the case. Very sorry. Have a good day. Be on your way. Okay. So, but that's the reality. It doesn't have to be flock. It can be somebody who calls in and says, and we get to the area and say, hey, that looks like our suspect vehicle. Sometimes it's not.
It actually happened to my parents.
Okay.
And it wasn't a pleasant experience. It didn't go beyond the stop, but for a solid 20, 30 minutes in the nineties, it was difficult. I had a very unique colored car, so it stood out like a sore thumb, and
Okay.
another one just like it did something bad, and it was a scary time. So it's just something that I think is worth keeping in mind. Because I can see, I expect the officers and I commend, the work that you do, and we all see it's not a fun job, probably the least fun job out there, in all honesty, and doesn't receive the respect it deserves. And you have to make split-second decisions, and it's that kind of thing that just has me nervous with the extra monitoring.
Right. I would say, and maybe with you, as far as what we're seeing though, it's more that there is confirmation of the plates. The vehicle description, that's just a character, that's just one aspect that Flock says that they can utilize, that they have. But it's more the fact that we're getting a plate popped up, or we're entering the plate into the system that, hey, we're looking for this vehicle for investigation, or we have fresh charges for this person. So it's more plate based usually.
Sure. And I can certainly appreciate from your angle that how effective it could be. And I don't know if you're familiar with the flip side of this, but in the legal realm, there's multiple Supreme Court cases going on right now. And though it's your personal opinion that, we're out in the open or in public, but there's actually some cases that have been allowed to move forward when continuous monitoring is happening in the public space. It can breach or it has potential to breach, and is being decided right now whether or not that is a breach of our Fourth Amendment rights.
And there are various states, and I think anywhere on any topic you can find, judicial system that might rule against something. Everybody else thinks it's okay, and you might get one court says that no, this is unlawful. I understand that completely.
Do you know if there's been any, or do you know in the state of Wisconsin, since these have been put in, where they've caught child abductors?
No, as far as, it does, you can get people who are, as far as registered sex offenders that will pop up on NCIC. So we haven't had any, I don't think that we've had any arrests tied to that, but that is an option. So.
Any other questions? I don't think so. Sorry, it's not open. Any other questions from the trustees? No?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your service. I just want to note, this is the second least favorite job. That's probably the first.
All right.
We're all clear.
So the cost is 8,500.
Madam President, I apologize. I do have a motion out there to table this. The agenda came out at 3 p.m. along with the board portal information. And so I made a motion before we took the presentation to table this to the next meeting. So I have enough time to finish my research, and I'm looking for you to consider a second.
If we're going to put cameras on in Wilmot, we might as well put a toll booth there too. Right? What is this? Chicago? Milwaukee?
Do we have a second?
I'm a no.
Motion has itself.
You want to
So-
amend your motion, or you going to table this?
Listen, I understand the election is like getting close, but we still have to act professional.
I'm
I'm also going
asking
to ask
him to
my board,
amend.
from now on, we do not just table things without hearing it through first. I don't think that's a
I didn't
fair
table
thing
it.
to do. I'm just saying across
I
the board.
Did not table it. I was
You
asking.
should always hear it out before you decide to just table it. We have a motion and a second to table it. Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Polly,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
No.
Mr. Hopkins.
No.
Mr. Young,
This is for tabling it?
yes?
No. No to tabling it.
So you do not want to table it.
No.
Okay, and I am a no. Motion fails.
I make a motion to approve the cameras as written, $8,500 to be placed on Highway C in Wilmont and Highway 83 in the state line. I might also add, going into this, we still have to get county approval on Highway W in Wilmont. and state approval on Highway 83 in Treber area.
I'd like to second that motion.
Mr. Barheit.
Oh, wait, we only have discussion?
Oh, you can have discussion, sure.
Oh, if we're gonna move forward, then I've got discussion.
Sure.
Okay. So again, you can tell that I've done some research, but I only had since 3 o'clock Friday afternoon. So as far as I was able to get, led me to want to table this because there are concerns. There's multiple cases. I got articles here that are within the last month to the last year across the country related to the Fourth Amendment infringement that comes with continuous constant monitoring. Now, don't get me wrong, an Amber Alert where we retrieve somebody's child quickly, that would be great. Getting the, catching the bad guys, catching the drugs. I think all of that's great. It's just we have to take a really close look at what a balance between freedoms and digital handcuffs and where are we comfortable with that? And as I shared, like my parents' scenario, this there's a couple things here that if we do go forward, you don't just go with Flock's standard contract. So a 30-day storage of information is actually the long one. There are some contracts where it's actually a 3-minute storage. You say, well, that doesn't sound like long enough time. Well, they use AI for this, and the information is instantaneous. So if this information has been stored onto the Flock that they're searching for, every time that car is read, it's a millisecond that the result comes through. So 3 minutes is a really long time. And so there are contracts that have been created that have storage for as short as 3 minutes. So that's one item. The next item is what we budgeted for was less than this amount. Don't we need a budget amendment prior to approving an item that it costs in excess of our budgeted amount? And if we don't, I'm new at this, but it's my first concern when we're spending money more than the budgeted line item. And I guess who can answer that question? Are we supposed to first amend our budget and then approve something, whatever it might be?
Valid question.
So, is there anybody that can answer that? So we can come back to that. I'll keep going. So, and it's not just a few, there's multiple Supreme Court cases in action right now. It's possible that the village could get drug into a case and have to defend that case and spend money defending that case for the cameras that we paid for as being our cameras.
That is correct.
So there's another consideration, and not that I'm against this, but there's some potential specific contract language we need to make sure occurs along with how it's used. We can even make that contract be only for the the Kenosha County Sheriff. And because if we don't, what it becomes available to goes right along with the testimony or the description that we heard tonight, is that it goes nationwide. And you might say, well, wouldn't you want to catch people nationwide? So there's part of me, yes, I want to catch all bad guys and I want them locked up and, who are honestly bad, right? But at what cost? And in there's always room for error. And could you be the person who gets picked up because they didn't get the plate? And could you then freak out and maybe now get charged with resisting arrest and have to pay for those lawyers? It's certainly possible. So there's if there's something going on across country, somebody was moving this direction, a car, the similar description seen, we could have that situation, which then could lead to potentially one of these lawsuits. So that's my concern. If we're going to move, I think we need to table to do further review. And honestly, any item can be tabled, especially when I don't have time to look at it. So I have to disagree with you, Madam President, on not going, if you want to move into a different way about it, where we actually move our motions to the end of discussion and open with discussion, that'd probably be the way to do that. I'm all for the discussion. So that is is one of the big things here for me is that are we going correctly? And if we are, we make sure we make that contract correct. And there's plenty of examples on bad contract, medium contract, and good contract. And we need to be looking at that before we just approve, along with we're exceeding our budgeted amount.
I can talk to what we've done in the past when we do a budget amendment, a line item amendment. We've always either approved the agenda item and then move into a line item adjustment. Because if it's shot down as an example, then there's no need to do a line item adjustment. Okay, so I can talk to that piece of it. Outside of that, I don't know what you're looking for from,
Did you get time to review it?
did I get time?
Yeah.
Yes, I spent most of the weekend looking at it. Okay. And it sounds like, Mr. Coley, you did as well. You got enough data over there.
Sounds like you don't like to, it's the Fourth Amendment right.
Talk to Mr. Coley.
I'm talking to
Can
you.
we all be respectful, please?
We are respectful. I like my rights.
So just to respond to you, Mr. Hopkins. Yeah, and where I landed, I didn't get to finish, but where I landed leaves me questioning. And what a concern would be when we just go to approve tonight, right? And then follow up maybe like with an budget amendment, is that we actually have to keep a piece open for the contract language to not just take Flock's standard. It's going to be the most intrusive, the most invasive for the members of our community, and to at least spend time reviewing that, because that's an important piece of this project. It can still be everything that we heard on the presentation tonight, but it can have some guardrails.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why we have a village attorney. Before any contracts are signed, I'm sure the village attorney reviews all the language of those contracts and gets back to either our administrator, Cassandra Hiller, and or the board expressing his concern.
Well, but before you answer that, Ramsey, my problem with that is it can be a legal contract, but is it what we want for our constituents? That's our realm.
Yeah, policy choice. I mean, how you vote on this tonight is your policy choice to make, and it can be subject to legal counsel review of the contract. In terms of the Fourth Amendment implications, I'm hearing this in live time, so I haven't looked at it. But Fourth Amendment is something I deal with almost every day. I quickly looked up, the Seventh Circuit is the federal court, appellate court that governs us, one step away from the U.S. Supreme Court. Found in 2021 that such stationary video cameras do not violate the Fourth Amendment. I can see why some of the cases may find that they do. It depends what you're going to do. There's the U.S. Supreme Court case involving placement of surveillance on vehicles, and there can be other things where you are directly conducting a search on a person. But if I'm understanding these things, if you have cars on the public streets, they're on the public streets, and I think if a camera is catching their license plates, it may not even be a quote unquote search that triggers the Fourth Amendment. But I can certainly do more legal research on that. I look quickly at the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm not easily finding any case that's populating.
There's one in Connecticut right now that a federal. Yeah, and that's, well, it's actually moving forward. When it was there was a motion to reject, and the judge ruled they can move forward, so
Right.
it's in process.
And those, so I understand, assuming that those cases deal with these particular type of cameras, I can see how some federal courts around the country are splitting. This happens all the time. What other federal courts are doing doesn't matter to us because we're the Seventh Circuit. So unless it is an Eastern District or Western District decision of Wisconsin or the Seventh Circuit or the U.S. Supreme Court, this body does not need to be concerned what other federal courts around the country are doing. I will, as another example, because I'm actually very curious about it and following these cases, the cases involving whether an officer, when they put a marking on your tire to determine whether you parked too long on the city street, is that a Fourth Amendment violation? Our Seventh Circuit hasn't quite addressed that yet, but other federal courts around the country are split. They've come up twice to the U.S. Supreme Court and it's rejected it twice already and hasn't taken it up. So I'm certainly willing to write some kind of legal memo for you that specifically tells you one way or another where the case law is tilting, but on the spot, my guidance is reflected. I found one case that seems to point towards no violation under the Fourth Amendment for stationary violation.
Madam President, I'll go ahead and amend my motion to table until further research is done.
I'll second.
Mr. Barheit. Vote to table. Turn.
Yes. Vote to table.
Is that a yes? Yes or a no?
Thank you.
Bill, yes or no?
No.
You do not.
I want to table it. Yes. We have three motions.
I just can't today. Okay. Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
Mr. Young, and I'm a yes. We'll table that. Thank you. 10.2, discussion regarding Journey Disaster Response Team facility use. I'm going to invite our administrator up to talk about this.
Good evening, members of the board. So this is just a recap. So the Journey Disaster Response Team has been using the Silver Lake EMS facility since at least 2017, rent and utility free. The village has covered 100% of the cost of them utilizing that facility since at least 2017. We've also covered any exterior maintenance as well as insurance on that facility during this time. During the village budget discussions in October and November, it was recommended that the village consider moving across the tracks from the current firehouse to the EMS facility that Journey Church is currently occupying, so that in the event of any major emergency, the village would have fire stations on both sides of the track. The board agreed. The board then budgeted to add funds to allow for the retrofitting of the EMS facility in the 2025 budget to move across the tracks. Retrofitting included adding drive-through doors to that facility. The board also agreed to issue notice to DRT that we would be discontinuing the use of that building for their use. On November 14th, after the budget passed, the village did issue DRT, which is the acronym for Journey Disaster Response Team. We did issue them notice on November 14th. The village then worked with DRT to agree upon a March 2025 being the month that the DRT would move out. Since that date, the village has been in communication with DRT regarding their timeline and any extensions that they may need. I've talked with Jeff Baird, he's their executive director, and said that if they needed a little bit of an extension, the door retrofit hasn't been completed yet anyways, and we would be able to give them some extension. In email correspondence, he's indicated that he was still aiming to be out in the month of March, which is what we're in right now. The village has also issued notice to the Wilmot Fire Association that we would no longer be utilizing their facility. The village has paid for all of the insurance, cleaning, lawn care, snow removal, and utilities of the Wilmot Association facility for years to use it for election purposes, no more than 3 times per year. In fact, this year, the village will only use this facility for a total of 3 days for the spring election, and we've been paying for 100% of those expenses. Since the village will no longer be using that facility, the village suggested to DRT to reach out to the association to see if they would be interested in a new tenant. From my understanding, DRT was told that that was not a compatible or desired use for the Wilmot Association. Concurrently, the Wilmot Association has asserted that they won't allow us out of their agreement until December of 2025. The association uses the facility for cookouts, parties, and other social events while the village pays all of the expenses. During the board budget workshops, it was also discussed that the village should seek revenues on underused facilities such as the building next door, which is currently on the market for rent, as well as the former Silver Lake Village Hall and Fire Department. If we rented out both the Silver Lake Village Hall and Fire Department jointly, it would rent for an estimated $4,500 per month. Currently, they are both underutilized, and we would be moving the Fire Department across the tracks into that other building, fully utilizing the other building, and then collecting rent on the 2 buildings we're not using.
When
So
are we,
that's a summary.
when are they moving into when is the fire department moving into that building?
They will move once the doors are finished, which were budgeted and approved in the 2025 budget. So the doors are not quite finished yet, so we are in the process of obtaining quotes for that, which you will then be able to review and approve because it will exceed my budgetary authority.
So I'm left really wondering here because this particular line item had zero backup information in the board portal, and I just checked again, and unless it's in there and I'm missing and it's not in order. So all my only information to divulge to decipher tonight is what you just said at the podium, and I don't do good in audio. I need to read the information. So I'd almost have to have you, if you're reading off of a copy, and be able to sit and think through that. So it would have been nice to have this to look in advance. What is the exact question on 10.2?
I was requested to add this item to the agenda per President Bucher.
I would like to see the DRT team be able to utilize that building until the fire department actually is moving in there, and then give them 30 days to move out.
That offer has been extended to them that they could stay until the doors are finished. The doors are not yet finished.
Okay.
That would offer them an extended period of time.
So I would just like to read something that I typed up, I come before you today, address the matter that deeply affects not only our community, but also those in dire need of help in emergencies. The future disaster relief team and their presence at the Silver Lake Fire Building. As you may know, DRT is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing immediate aid and relief to those affected by disasters, from fires to floods, from tornadoes and personal tragedies. This group has been steadfast presence, offering essential service that alleviates suffering and provide hope in time of crisis. However, recent decisions have been made to remove the DRT from the Silver Lake Fire Building, a space that has served as the hub for their operations. So I stand here today to urge us all to reconsider, just to keep them in there as long as possible, as its consequences could be far-reaching. Loss of critical emergency resources, undermining volunteer and community engagement. The DRT is an example of how nonprofits create strong, interconnected communities. Many of their volunteers are local residents who want to make the tangible difference in the lives of others. So by supporting this organization, providing them with the space they need, we are reinforcing a culture of giving, volunteerism, and community spirit. So removing them from this location could inadvertently discourage future volunteers who look to this organization for guidance and purpose. As myself, since they don't have the equipment to move, I am trying to get things together in case they do have to move here in the next few weeks. However, when the fire department is ready to come in and move, then we give them, just a couple week notice and say, hey, okay, we'll give you 30 days. If you guys can agree to a 30-day notice, they have a lot of equipment, guys. There's a lot of stuff from the disaster relief team. There's several chiefs around this area that are highly supportive of the DRT team.
And just to reiterate, we did offer them the ability to stay longer, and they could even stay during construction of the doors. So
I appreciate that. I know you have reached out, and I know you've done a great job. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, the building next door, 4,000 a month, no one's going to pay 4,000 a month. I mean, the DRT is not. I'm sorry. The DRT is not going to pay 4,000 a month. They're a nonprofit organization. Okay. So if anyone could give me some suggestions, I'm all ears,
So I want to fall back to if we get some clarity on the question. So maybe some help with you, Cassandra. And the question I think is, does the board want to consider X, right? Like to let them stay until the certain timeline? What's the question to the board?
That was already decided. I had asked for this to be put on the agenda because there is talk out in the public about us kicking them out unfairly. And so I wanted to address it, that they were given ample time. They were also given 8 years of free space. I am all for supporting them. This is my church. However, we also have a whole community to support with fire services. That is why we made this decision during the budget talks last year. Cassandra reaching out to the Wilmot station was great. It's unfortunate that they will not consider that. Yes,
May I talk?
yes.
That building is far and away better than the building that the fire department is now. I think with all the buildings we have, where's Andy at? How many bays are in the old town garage? Is it 4 or 3? We have the feed mill in one, and What's in the very center?
Hear you if you don't talk into the microphone.
What I'm trying to do is we've got buildings. It's a good organization. If we can use a bay there in that town garage, have them pay to get their separate electric, have them pay the electric. They don't have that much stuff over there that wouldn't fit in that big center bay.
That big center bay, we actually have our pontoon boat that we store in there. All of our mowers, our tractors go over there. Our loader will go over there in the summertime. So it gets used. It's.
I know, but we have, once we switch the fire department over, we have that building. Can we section off part of that?
We won't have that. We won't have that building. The board in discussions has asked since I started to look at all of our facilities and try to maximize revenues on them. If we're not utilizing a facility, I'm supposed to be looking to rent it out. So when that building is vacated, it will be looked at to be rented out. It won't be just left as an empty shell that we're paying utilities on and everything else.
Here's an
Say,
idea.
But
Go ahead.
I surely don't want to give up the building away from the park district. That's a building they need, they could use and rent out. So the garage parts, we have a bay possibly somewhere over at the Old Town Garage. Well, we can move you over to the other one. What is the other garage that Silver Lake has? What do you got the cat backhoe at?
We've got the Silver Lake Highway Department building. That's got the cat backhoe, our televising truck, our portable generator, another tractor over there for grading out the alleys. We're pretty much full. Every building that we have at the
Well-
old shop, the 2 bays that we have are full.
I think we could try and find something. They don't have that much. They have a.
Oh, it's full. If you go into the Silver Lake Rescue, it is
Right.
plumb.
But I
full.
mean, we could try and find something for them.
I know
have a
we
lot of
offered
buildings.
the garage units over here behind the town hall to them before, and they said it was too small and it was too far away from where they're at. So, I mean, we did offer them something, some other alternative.
Then
Is that an
no, They
option?
can't move to something. No, because that
Well-
building is an excellent fire department. I mean, it is 10 times better than the other one.
Well, we can run it by Jeff, see if those are going to be adequate for him. You know, I'm sorry,
Do-
go ahead.
Is that an option?
Sorry for talking.
I was actually going to be putting one of the antique fire trucks back there and there would be one bay open, but there would not be enough room for the volume of things that they have. They have a lot. And in the current facility that they're in, they do climate control the whole thing. I'm not sure if it would still need to be climate controlled, but it is climate controlled currently.
Partial, you're correct. Yep, they do need.
Above freezing.
There's water.
So-
And that is not climate controlled. And you can actually see through the walls in spots. So
So I would just like to see them stay, if everybody on the board and Madam President, if you would allow them to stay until the fire department moves in there. Okay, I know they're getting everything for free. It's a nonprofit organization. They're not making money. I mean,
and just to confirm, that has been offered. I'm not asking
no,
them to move
I know
tomorrow.
you've done a lot. You've been a lot of help, Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for helping me. Seriously.
Okay.
My only thing is, well, we could save that 8,000 from the cameras and do something with that too, put up another little building if we had to. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay, so there is no
you,
action on this
President.
item.
I'd like to make the comment that I've had a lot of calls ever since we closed the Wilmot Firehouse. Because we don't have equipment on that side, the south side of the tracks. And many years ago, we used to have like 25 trains a week. Now we have close to 30 a day. So having all our fire equipment on one side of the railroad tracks is not really supported by quite a few people who live on the other side of the tracks. So,
And that is why we're working diligently on getting that facility moved across the tracks. So thank you for the support of the board. Thank you.
Great. All right, number 11, Treasurer's Office. Discussion and possible action on the following. 11.1 CLA contract to provide the 2025 annual audit services for $26,000.
Motion to approve the contract for $26,000 to CLA.
I'll second that.
I'd like to have discussion.
Yes, Cassandra?
So CLA is our audit firm that we use to do the audit of the village. They have been doing the audit for several years of our village. They do a fantastic job. They're nearly finished with the audit for 2025. And when they do the audit, for anyone that isn't aware of how an audit works, they actually look at last year's numbers. They're not auditing 2025 numbers, they're auditing 2024. They also provide some additional but necessary non-audit services such as preparation of our financial statements and related notes, preparation of the required supplementary information, also known as an RSI, preparation of the adjusted journal entries, and their contract was included. They do a really great job. Last year, their cost was $25,500. This year, they're proposing somewhere between $25,500 and $26,000. So keeping similar as last year, potentially only a $500 increase.
So this item also is our budget amount was $21,000 that we had in the budget. So this exceeds our budget item. So I have my next question already answered by Mr. Hopkins previously. We'd have to follow up with a budget amendment. But that line item also includes in our budget accounting services. I'm sorry. No, includes, yes, includes not just accounting. Apologize. It includes the second item. I don't have that in front of me right now. That would be then not part of the review. Do we need to have the accounting services on top of the audit?
If you recall, we went to a category-based budget this year, which meant that we took all of our amounts of budget and we divided it between departments.
Mhm.
I would have to go back and take a look at how the percentages were allocated amongst departments to make sure that I can answer your question.
But the line item itself actually has both audit and accounting in it for 21,000. I looked at it. So I'm just letting you know that that's what I read in there. And that's my question, that now what are we left hanging on when we spend this 26,000? Are we all gone? And if we need accounting services, where do we get that money from? And maybe that was just an addition of words that is in the wrong spot too, but it's in there. Also RFP. And now I'm always a big one on wanting to get bids. And so then I try to be cognizant of, am I asking that question too often? So when I did try to do my research, almost every village and town across the state of Wisconsin goes out for RFP for the outside audit services. What I found in that is, what's the purpose of the RFP? And any RFP is to make sure we're getting the best price. But inside of specifically, when you do an RFP for an audit for a village, town, or city, how that audit is turned back in, how quickly, how completely, thoroughly, and price are all components that are used to score to award that contract. So ultimately, though the state of Wisconsin may not require us to get multiple prices, the frugality of interest of the constituents would bear to say, are we getting the right price or the best price? And we don't know that if we don't go out for bid. Creating an RFP can also create a bunch of extra work. I understand that. However, there are literally hundreds of examples, LaPointe, La Crosse, all across the internet, with literally like a 1-minute search where it's already been laid out that we could copy that and put that out for RFP and go to that system and make sure that we're getting the best bang for the village's buck. I also am waiting for a call back from the municipal league to find out, is there a particular deadline necessary that we have to meet to turn that in? And the last item is, you had said that this is for 24 and 25, but the portal indicates that 24 is almost done. So I guess I'm a little bit confused.
Yes, so the original agreement was signed on November 10th of 2022. In my previous work experience, it is very, very common to do 3-year contracts with 2-year extensions. So that would put you within a 5-year timeframe where you would go out. If you were happy with their services after the first 3 years, you could extend in 1-year increments up to 5 years. And that has been extremely successful in my previous organizations that I've worked in. We would still be within those 5 years if you were using that model as a model that we could use here. Also, with our staff turnover and not having a finance director at the moment, and trying to make sure that all items were complete before Amanda left, it did not make sense to try to contract or go out for RFP this year. There was simply not the ability to do that. It is much much more responsible to stick with a firm that is already familiar with our government in order to do the audit. As far as your other questions, I don't have answers for those right now. I would have to look into the budget question. I don't have that in front of me. And then we could go out for RFP next year. I did not recommend going to RFP this year.
And as far as the timeline though, and not having a finance director, we did just hire a finance director / treasurer that starts in about a week or so or three
March 31st at the end of this month.
at the end of this month. And I'm waiting for that answer back from Municipal League about there being a deadline. So if it can be done later in the year, I don't see that being something that we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and not go out for RFP. So what am I missing there? You mentioned we don't have but we do have a finance
Well,
director.
He hasn't started yet, and then there's going to be a learning curve. You know, he doesn't start till what, the end of the month, right?
Correct.
So how does that preclude us from going out for RFP?
Well, CLA is almost finished with last year's audit, and so they've already started the work. I have requested that next year they get this to us earlier so that I'm not asking you to approve something after the majority of the work has already been done. That doesn't feel good for me either.
So
I would prefer to have had already asked you this in January, not right now when they're 3/4 of the way through with the audit.
So, okay, that answers the question that if they're in the middle of doing it, then we're more of working to approve something that they already have been given direction on to do.
Correct.
Okay. So moving forward for future years, can we look at going to an RFP for this, especially since
Absolutely.
it's common practice across the state?
Yes, and like I'd mentioned earlier, if you went with the 5-year model where you do a 3-year contract with 2-year extension, you would be approaching that anyways. So it would be a good idea to go out for RFP for next year.
Thank you.
A $500 increase. It's small.
I was just wondering.
And it's estimated, it's somewhere between 25,500 and 26,000.
No, last year was also in the line item for $21,000.
I am not sure why. I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry. I will look.
So, so it is a considerable increase more. So when we do the budget amendment, we got to make sure we do it correctly because it's not a $500 increase. It's thousands of dollars increase.
The amount the board approved last year, I believe, was $25,500, but I can go back and double check. I don't know why it doesn't show up that way in your budget. Like I said, the category-based budget for this year split monies amongst the departments that all use this so that when you're auditing, we're auditing the utilities, we're auditing the village, we're auditing everything.
So would it be just as a discussion topic, not that we have to do this, but would it be smart to table this, make sure we have the numbers correctly, that we then could vote to approve it and then follow it up with a proper budget amendment that matches the numbers?
I would not recommend that
Why not?
because they're almost done with the work. And I can bring back the budget amendment at the next meeting.
Okay, right now we have a motion and we have a second.
It's a motion again.
The motion was to approve the contract. Mr. Young? Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Gant?
Yes.
Mr. Polly?
No.
Mr. Faber?
Yes.
Mr. Barheit?
Yes, with the stipulation, we look at bidding it out next year. And I think if we do 2 years,
And I'm a yes, motion passes. 11.2, appointment of Sarah Spencer as interim treasurer.
Motion
Yes,
to approve.
Seconded.
the motion needs to be to appoint Sarah as interim treasurer commencing today until April 1st, right? And there will be no compensation increase because we have to have an interim treasurer. So could you amend your motion, please?
I'll amend the motion to appoint Sarah Spencer as the interim treasurer until April 1st of 2025.
And I'll continue my second as such.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Number 12, clerk's office, discussion and possible action on the following: approval of minutes from February 24th, 2025 village board meeting. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Euchre in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Number 13, Public Works, discussion and possible action on the following. 13.1, purchase of a forestry mulching head to replace our 19-year-old brush cutter from Burris in the amount of $21,960.68. I think the correct way to do this, if I'm not mistaken, Rumsey, because we tabled this from last time, I should make a motion to untable. Is that how you're supposed to do it?
No,
You don't. Okay, great. Okay. Andy?
Hi, guys. As you recall, we were here a month or so ago about this forestry head. I came with 3 bids. They were all the same brand, but from 3 different companies. I was trying to compare apples to apples. As we all agreed, there are different brands out there, and there's a different cost to each one of those. From now and or from this point, and our thrasher head has broke. The main shaft that connects the blades to the motor is snapped, and our particular thrasher head is no longer being made. Parts are hard to get. We have gotten parts through a company in Canada, and if you notice through the packet, we do have an email back from what it would cost to just get the parts, which is $5,712.94. That's without any labor of rebuilding and retrofitting. To retrofit it, to use the parts that we're getting, we will have to put a new mounting plate in. So we're gonna have to cut out the old mounting plate and weld in a new mounting plate. So that's why we're back in front of the board here today with the mulching head. And as you can tell, we have 3 different brands now. We have Fecon, Indeco, and Blue Diamond, which is the brand that I came with previously. So I did want to answer the gentleman's question from public comment about renting. It is a option. They are out there. But the problem with that, and to rent the head for a excavator, we might get lucky and be able to find one that will be compatible with our machine. Otherwise, we're gonna have to rent a machine with it. Skid steer rental would be kind of different. They're pretty universal. They're plates. So you might just be able to rent a head for a skid steer, but for an excavator, everything's, it could be different hydraulic fittings, different coupler, stuff like that. From just a rough estimate on what it would cost from different companies, I kind of broke it down. Just for the head, it'd be $305 a day. For a week would be $915, and for a month it would be $2287, and that would just be for the mulching head. For the machine, if we would have to rent a machine because our machine's not compatible, a day rental would be $420, a week would be $1260, and a month would be $3780. I would say in a year, and obviously it's not consecutive, I would say about 2 months worth of work, if not a little bit more. But that isn't back-to-back days of running it. We usually do this in late fall to early spring when the leaves are falling, things are brown. So with that, to rent a machine, we might not be out using it every day, but we would be paying that cost every day because there might be snow, there other, we got to do other stuff in the village as well. So not saying it can't be done to rent it, but I think there would be some wasted money being spent on a rental unit for it just sitting in our shop. And that's what if you guys got any questions.
Yeah, so I certainly appreciate those rental numbers. The other thing that I don't know if we've looked at, it sounds like we have potential in village vendors, so that could potentially offer the service, because it looks like a week would be like for renting and then putting our people in it, about $6,000 for head and machine for a week, 40 hours. We're on the meter typically is how that kind of a rental
Correct.
works. And so that was one of my questions is, it could be not just rent the head, but rent a whole machine and then having the proper safety gear on it. Cause that's another thing that I've got. I know that when you and I talked earlier today, you mentioned
Correct.
that there's the
And there's-
Ollie shield, but I don't think that is, like I asked you, is there documentation that says that that's there for impact from
Sure.
something that puts out
And
that
like I said,
energy.
I don't have that documentation, and I will agree, there's always room for improvement when it comes to safety, not just with this, but everything that we do day to day in the highway department and the sewer department. And I do enjoy that.
I can say, Pete, though, that the poly shield that we have was purchased with the brush cutter that we currently have. So we'd have to dig and find documentation on the impact rating, but it was bought for that one.
For that one.
Yeah.
Along some similar lines, and this one would not be one that you guys can specifically answer. It's gonna go into funding, but let me stop back and go into the repairs before we let you step down there. So 5,700-ish in parts. The labor, when I've looked into it today, and actually one of our board members took a look into it, and looks about maybe 5 hours of labor would be to rebuild that I guess it's not so much a gearbox, it's got a different name. What is it? A power transition. Anyhow, where it goes from a horizontal movement to a vertical movement.
Yep.
That once those parts are all obtained from the company that makes it, which that actually is a pretty good cutter head, which you guys just recently used it in Vermont and Yars. I happened to go in there today to see a friend of mine, and I thought you guys did some work. That's why I asked you about it today.
Yep.
It didn't look
Yeah,
too bad.
that's where we ended up breaking down.
Right. So on top of the 5,700, we might be looking at 4 or just say 5 shop hours, $150 an hour, so maybe $600, $700, $800 in labor on top of that number. So that would put us at a grand total of somewhere in the upper 6,000 bracket to put that one back in service. Now, when we did talk today, Nate, you had mentioned that hoses were breaking on it, and when I looked at some of the parts that were supposed to be originally mounted with that head that we currently have and using, one of them is a relief valve. And if you're having hoses burst, that
That'd be our
leads me to
case drain
believe.
on the machine.
What's that?
The case drain on the machine you're talking about.
Well, you had mentioned that you had hoses breaking on the related to the cutter head. You're saying that it's something separate on the excavator that's breaking, not related to the cutter head?
On the cutter head, it does have a relief valve on it, or a relief drain.
Relief drain, but there's supposed to be actually a pressure relief that kicks off somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 PSI, which would reduce the hose breakage. Sounds like that may be malfunctioning on our current unit and maybe led to some of this damage as long with hose damage.
That is something we could look into on it.
So I guess, when I look at this together, we've got a lot of different things that, well, I got one more thing to share with you, a concern. Let's say we end up moving forward tonight and I get beat out. Here's where the concern lands. The machine, the 50G from 2005 has a gallon per minute rating.
It's an 80G.
It's an 80G.
Correct.
So what's the gallon?
Or C, sorry. Yeah.
80C. What's the, and that, I don't know if that's the one I looked up or not now. What is the gallon per minute rating at the end of the for auxiliary? It's going to be and not a range. It's probably going to be a set number. The max.
I believe, so all these heads were specced. So every company we called, they looked up the specs for our John Deere excavator to size it for our exact machine. So I can't, if I can remember right, it might be in the 30s GPM wise.
If it is, I don't have this concern, but if it's 17 gallons a minute at the end.
No, it's not on the low end. It would fall right kind of in that middle range.
Well, one thing, what I looked up was the top GPM for the output on auxiliary, and I might have looked up the wrong machine, but I'm just saying if what we have is 17 and not 30, then this unit won't work after you take off. When you hit 3,000 hours, you can drop 30% efficiency in your hydraulic pump. Looks like you might be looking up the specs, Nate, so that's pretty awesome. We can get the answer tonight. If you
I was going to say, otherwise I would look that up for you.
It's 33 is what was fresh from the manufacturer delivered to the field. So even a 30% loss is going to put us down at like roughly 21, 22 gallons per minute, which the range of operation for the unit you want to purchase according to the specifications is 12 gallons a minute to 40 gallons a minute. So it would fall in the middle. So my concern of it maybe not working, I'll take that back because I looked up the wrong GPM. But from a financial aspect, then that might be something you could turn over to Brad. Don't want to put you on the hot seat for that one. Thank you guys very much.
Madam Chairman. Can I speak?
Yeah.
All right, I went and looked at it with Andy and it's beat up, but it's still serviceable. They got the same parts. I did some little bit of research and same parts, exact same price for the parts. I got an estimate of, without tearing, looking into it, and you're gonna be rebuilding it with better parts than was in available when it came out. They're updated. He said about probably a good number is $1,000 to rebuild it. My experience with equipment, we can ask some of the other people out here, generally, if we stick, say 7,000, even if we stick $7,500 into this thing, it's a $25,000 piece of machinery when it was new, or the new one is. If we stick this money in, rebuild it, I got some other problems with this thing. Generally, when you sell equipment, new price to use, if it's in good running condition, half, we get half back. So if we stick $8,000, we're way less than half the cost of a new head, way less than this. I would suggest we fix this thing. And the other problem I has now, we're going to be purchasing with funds assigned from a 2024 Trails Development Fund with a balance of $51,000 and $51,456. I don't know how we overbid that much more than a job, but any money, and I'm going to put this in for next month, any money that we have left over from the project should go back into that fund. We keep using up the parks fund and this trails fund. We're not getting anything done around this town if we keep buying equipment. But I would suggest right now, in fact, I will make a motion that we repair this model and then redesign. The new head that they're talking is a better head, a much cleaner cut, no doubt about that. And then we figure how to budget some years down the line for a better head. But meanwhile, what we stick in, we should be able to get right back out when we go to sell the project. Because what if you sell it now, you're not going to get very much. It's correct. Yeah. So now if we fix it, get it running, as long as it's working okay, put the money into it. When we figure a way to fund this out of the garage money, or how we have to do that, we can figure how to get that going. But to just get rid of it now, I don't think that's good for the town. I definitely don't want to see us using up more of that trails money and more park money for equipment.
Well, and I guess to just a tail onto yours, and I know you kind of created some kind of motion, so separate from that. When we look at the funds here, as you presented last time, Brad, that the funds would come for and is being proposed to come out of parks. It's a question again, because I don't know, but are we misappropriating funds if that unit is not just used for parks? If it's used, like, for example, the old unit was used in Valmar and Yards along the roads. Are we, it's simply like an accounting thing. If we think it's going to be 85% roads and 15% parks, that's really how we should be pulling the money, not completely out of parks to then use it along the roads. Or am I wrong? Is this perfectly fine?
This money is from the 40 fund, which is labeled Trails Fund, which has money going into it from impact fees, interest on investments, transfers in bond proceedings, and reappropriation of surplus. So it's not solely impact fees that have been collected. Since 2017, we have increased that fund by $36,119 in interest alone, which covers the cost of this head. We did budget in 2024 for disc golf and this trail. Totally kind of guessing at what the price was going to be because we had no idea what it was going to be. The low bid came in at least half of what the next lowest bidder came in. We got an excellent price for it. And at budget time, we reassigned the savings of $51,496. At budget time, the board approved reassigning that for this Thresher Head and the Rock Lake Pier. We have enough funds for the Thresher Head and to fix the Rock Lake Pier. So legally, we can use the interest. We are also working with legal counsel and both with the park study to make sure that impact fees are usable for instances like this also.
So I guess, so my question remains unanswered in regards to When I say that, I mean respectfully, it sounds like you don't know the answer if we can or can't use the funds, even if you point to the interest, or we've determined legally we can use the funds. And when I say that, to purchase the unit, right? But when we use the unit or when we use it along roads, are we going about this correctly?
Oh, no, it can legally be done.
Okay.
These were, like I said, that fund is made up by these other collections. So yes, it can legally be done.
Even though it was for pier and for a thresher head for trails.
It was assigned for this, I believe.
I just did want to emphasize on it too, that I don't know if you guys have been through like the disc golf that we had put in a couple years ago and how much that cost when it was put in. This thrasher head, we can create all these trails now on our own. Between the skid steer attachment we have and that, we can pretty much just take all that work in-house. And I don't know, like I said, if you haven't went through them yet, I encourage you to go through them and just see all the work that we have done in the last year over there.
Do you know what that trail fund is? What it's designed, what it was designed for? I was at the very beginning of all this.
Okay.
Yes, I do, Billy.
Yeah. Do you remember what it's for? You've been there a long time too. It's to connect.
Agenda.
We are
Agenda.
off
All right.
topic. So we have a motion right now from Mr. Barheit to repair. However, we don't have an exact amount. Where are these parts coming from?
It's just an estimate. They can't do it till they open it up and see what's broke.
And where is it?
We can get bids on it.
And what you're saying, it's unforeseen what we're gonna tear into and what the parts.
Well, you're, no,
Hang on,
the parts
no.
are all in there.
Parts are at 5,700 and that's in our board portal and was
5700.
presented to us.
Where's the company that's going to?
Well, we can
this?
take bids on it if you want. I just got somebody give me a rough estimate on it.
Local?
Yes, local.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of welding shops that could do this.
It's been stated to be between 4 and 5 hours of work. If you look at the pictures in the board portal, that seems appropriate to me. And then it looks like on the list of items, when I had mentioned about the relief valve, it looks like on the list of parts potentially that we were able to look up on it, that a new relief valve is most likely probably in that parts list. So that might solve that broken hose thing that keeps happening you guys mentioned today. I don't know, just throwing that out there.
You know, I kind of have a different view of this now, Pete. Just discussion, right? The wear and tear on the old one. Now you're fixing it. Now you're fabricating a piece of equipment. You know, you're.
It seem that way, but when you look at all the parts, Trey, just to help you understand, it's going to be all brand new passing through that. When you saw a picture of that shield in the portal,
I did.
That's the only piece really getting reused. The rest of it's all new parts.
I did just want to say something, with the Fecon head, the actual brand name Fecon. We have a quote for 21,960. The current head we have has lasted us 19 years. Let's say this one lasts us, 20 years. That's about $1,000 a year. Obviously a little bit more. I'm not going to break down. Can't do math on the spot that good. But at $1,000 a year, you're also dealing with newer equipment. You're also able to be more efficient. We're going to have, I'm not going to say less time, but we're going to be able to do more as far as size and diameter of trees. It's going to be less wear and tear on our equipment because it can take larger diameter brush. The one we have now, if it knocks a 2-inch tree, it basically stops it. And then you got to pull off and let it, wind back up and hit it again. So that's a big hit on the machine and that head as well. And like we discussed last meeting about this, they're made to take a beating. That's their main job. So 19 years of hitting trees, it's, I would think right at this point, it's time to replace it and possibly upgrade it to something a little bit more efficient.
Jared, you can finish your thought.
Yeah, I just, with the $21,000 they saved, with the parks and whatnot. And I know you guys are worried about the funds. I think the efficiency, it's 2025. They can go through things much quicker. I'm gonna be for it, at first I wasn't, but I think that, Brad did a good job explaining the funds, in the interest, and I'm a go. I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chairman, I'd like to amend my
I'm-
amendment not to exceed $7,500.
Your motion is to repair not to exceed 7,500.
Not to exceed 7,500.
I'd like to second that motion.
Is that, so if we cannot do it for that price, we're not fixing it?
Right.
Okay.
What if you can't repair it for $7,900? It's junk anyway.
Okay, well, we have a
Then we
motion
could
and
You
a
have to tell
second.
what it is before you even put the parts in.
We have a motion and a second, so, Jared? Right.
No.
Mr. Hopkins,
No.
Mr. Gant,
No.
Mr. Polly,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
and I am a no.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a cutter head in the amount of $21,960.68.
I'll second that motion.
Question on it?
Mhm.
Where are we gonna get the money at? We gonna rob from that fund again?
You
Is-
just
is
heard
it-
from where?
It's budgeted, correct?
We assigned it over from the 2024 budget. That was board approval.
You have 8,000 from, cameras too that you're not gonna spend.
All right, so we have a first and a second to purchase the forestry mulching head. Jared,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Pete,
No.
Dennis,
I'll say yes.
Billy,
No.
and I'm a yes. Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you.
Number 14, closed session. 14.1, closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically 704-120-214-0220 on 269th Avenue and 704-122-130-575 on 278th Avenue and 704-120-074-3460 on Maple Street.
So moved.
Abstained.
Second.
Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
Mr. Polly,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yeah.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
I have to abstain.
Okay,
Abstain, please.
I'm a yes. So 6-1, we are in closed. Everybody, please turn off We had a motion by Mr. Hopkins and a second by Mr. Polly with a unanimous vote of 6-0 to move into open session. 14.2, reconvene into open session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 2 for possible additional discussion and or action concerning any matter discussed in closed session, possible action regarding 704-122-140220 on 269th Avenue and 704-122-130575 on 278th Avenue and 704-120-074-3460 on Maple Street. I make a motion to direct staff to proceed as discussed.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jared?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Great, motion carries. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?